He was born with the weakest support class, but he became the leader of the strongest adventurer group. Noel was born into a world where gates to the demon realm open whenever a large amount of mana gathers in one area. The higher the concentration of mana, the higher the demon gates level, and the stronger the monsters that come out of it. Those who fight the monsters are called adventurers, and his grandpa, Brandon, was known as the strongest hero of his time. Inspired by his grandpa's legendary stories, Noel dreamed of becoming a hero too. One night, a level 12 demon gate opened in his village, and powerful demonic beasts came through, including the Beast Lord. The creatures started killing the villagers and burning everything they saw, and the only one who could face them was Brandon. Noel, who was just a weak teenager at the time, went into the underground shelter with the other villagers. Brandon told him that he'd be safe from the monsters down there and ordered him not to leave the shelter for any reason while he went to buy time until reinforcements from the capital arrived. Noel knew the reinforcements would be late, and he was scared his grandpa would die. Brandon firmly told him not to underestimate him since he was once the strongest hero known as Over Death. He reassured Noel that he'd protect him, even if it was the last thing he did. With that, the old man walked out with his huge battle axe, ready to face the beasts hunting and devouring humans. Brandon slashed through the creatures with a single swing of his axe, but then the beast leader noticed him and sent all its forces to attack the old man. Without hesitation, Brandon charged forward. While Brandon fought outside, Noel trembled in fear inside the shelter. He kept worrying about his grandpa, and when he heard a huge explosion outside, his mind went blank. When dawn arrived and the sounds outside stopped, Noel stepped out of the shelter to find his grandpa among the monster corpses. He found Brandon, but the old man was badly wounded, having lost both his legs in the battle. Noel screamed as he ran to his grandpa's side, but the old man hadn't left this world yet. He told Noel that this was the fate of adventurers. They always lived on the edge of life and death. He asked Noel if he still wanted to be an adventurer like him, and with tears in his eyes, Noel said he definitely would. Brandon made him promise to become the strongest adventurer, and Noel swore he would. The old man laughed, patting his grandson's head, telling him he loved him. And with that, he finally said goodbye to this world, leaving Noel shattered. 2 years later, Noel had become an adventurer like he promised his grandpa. Right now, he's in a dungeon fighting monsters with his group. But his class is Talker, which is considered the weakest class among adventurers. He uses his talking skills to give orders to his teammates, telling them how to defeat the four-legged monster in front of them. They follow his instructions carefully and easily take down the monsters, who are underlings of the lowly vampire queen. Noel tells his team that these vampire underlings are small fry who can't even use magic, and their target is to take out the queen, a strong, independent woman who doesn't need a man to make children. As they head to the cave to find and wipe out all the goblin minions, a tall knight named Walter asks Noel why they don't just go straight to the queen and kill her instead of wasting time on these weak underlings. He says it would be more efficient, but Noel shuts him down, saying it's a bad idea. He explains that their group, **beyond **, is only rank C, and they wouldn't normally be able to take on a B-rank mission like this. The only way they can be sure to beat the queen is by taking down the vampire underlings first. When Walter mocks Noel because of his class, Noel remembers his grandpa's advice to never let anyone look down on him. At that moment, he downed a bottle of antidote and pulled out his Glock, shooting the vampire queen. As the poison cloud cleared, Noel declared he'd show everyone how a talker fights. He used his class ability, Tactician, to boost his team's strength just by giving orders. With this, Noel could increase all of his team's stats by 25%. Then, he warned them about an upcoming area attack and used another skill called Battle Roar, which boosted the team's mana and stamina by 25%. After that, Noel told Tanya to throw shields onto the two fighters and ordered them to attack the monster. Walter landed a deep wound on the vampire queen, while Lloyd sliced off one of her tentacles. Things were going smoothly, but then Tanya spotted more monsters approaching from behind and panicked, thinking they wouldn't be able to take down the queen. Noel quickly used another skill to calm her down and lift her spirits. He told the others to keep fighting the queen and leave the small monsters to him. Noel ordered Tanya to keep shielding the two fighters and instructed them to dodge the queen's attacks while prepping their final strikes. The little vampires rushed at him, but Noel used his stun howl skill to freeze them in place. The monsters dropped to the ground, and then he used his magic weapon to fire ice bullets, creating massive ice crystals that trapped all the monsters inside. However, one still remained, and Noel only had one bullet left. He checked his watch to see if it was time to use his trump card, then fire the last bullet at the vampire queen to distract her. He used his assault command skill, pushing Walter and Lloyd beyond their limits, and ordered them to unleash their ultimate attack on the Queen. Both fighters struck, beheading the vampire queen with one clean slice. Everyone turned to Noel, telling him they had won, but they were shocked. They noticed a vampire had gotten close to Noel, frozen just inches from him, while Noel collapsed for no apparent reason. He knew that when the vampire queen died, all her children would die too, so he didn't bother dealing with the last vampire. Noel checked his watch and saw that everything had happened exactly as he predicted. The mana in the area disappeared, and things returned to normal. Noel told his team they did a great job, but they scolded him for being reckless and risking his life. Hearing this, Noel remembered how sad he felt when he found out he'd been given the weakest class. Back then, he was still too young, and his grandpa just laughed, telling him not to worry. His grandpa said Noel had a natural talent for being an adventurer and promised to train him to become the strongest. Now, Noel had sworn to his late grandpa that even though he had the weakest class, he would become the strongest adventurer and even surpass him. At the moment, Noel lives in the Velat Empire, a prosperous country but also quite vulnerable to attacks from demon beasts. The Empire saw opportunity in the situation and started using beast parts to create magical tools, making them even wealthier. Because of this, adventurers who enter the demon realm and fight the beasts are considered heroes. Noel and his team went to a restaurant to celebrate their successful mission. While everyone was chatting about the mission, Noel was lost in thought about how he needed to get a scout to balance the team better. Walter, already drunk, started flirting with Noel, thinking he was just a pretty tomboy. Noel told him to shut up, and Walter switched topics, asking if Noel was acting cynical because he failed to negotiate a good price for their loot this time. He said adventurers shouldn't care too much about money, and even Noel's grandpa would have said the same. This offended Noel because Brandon always taught him that adventurers should be very mindful of their money since they always need the best gear and potions on the battlefield. His grandpa also said to never back down and always chase profit. Noel had been following that advice ever since. Walter suddenly started yelling at Noel, accusing him of being too greedy about money and ruining the team's reputation. Noel just mocked him, saying it was Walter's incompetence that was ruining their name. Walter started swearing, calling Noel a coward who just hid behind them and gave orders while they risked their lives fighting monsters. Noel didn't react much, except to make a snide comment about Walter's mother, which only made him angrier. Walter grabbed Noel by the collar, threatening to teach him a lesson, but before things escalated, Lloyd stepped in, pulling them apart and asking them to behave, at least in public. After that, they went outside to split the mission rewards. Even though the amount they earned was decent, each person's share was pretty low since most of the money went into equipment repairs, group funds, and the commission from the clan that hired them. Tanya wasn't happy about it, but Lloyd tried to cheer her up, saying that if they got a few more high-paying jobs like this, they'd be doing better soon. Noel disagreed, saying that wasn't going to happen because all the good jobs were usually snatched up by clans directly connected to the government. When they hired freelance adventurers like them, the commission was so high that it was hard to really make progress. Noel suggested that Lloyd should use the group's funds to start their own clan, which surprised everyone. Lloyd replied that the cost to start a clan was 20 million, while they only had 12.8 million. Noel said he already knew that, which is why he was planning to cover the rest himself, since they desperately needed to form a clan now. Lloyd pointed out that they'd also need a clan building in the city, and rent was expensive. Noel said he knew a place with cheap rent. Tanya then argued that they didn't have enough experience to run a clan yet. Noel asked when they'd ever have enough experience and said they'd figure out how to run a clan once they actually started it. Tanya and Lloyd were still hesitant, saying they were too young to earn the government's trust. Noel responded by saying they were young and good-looking, which would definitely work in their favor. He added that adventurers were considered heroes nowadays, and young, skilled, charismatic people would quickly become popular. Noel was confident they'd gain fame, and maybe some companies would even sponsor them. Walter agreed with Noel about forming a clan and asked how he was making decisions so easily. Noel said he wanted power and money, and they weren't going to get that by staying as a small team. He then joked with Tanya, saying she'd probably side with him if she became his girlfriend, but Lloyd got mad and told Walter to stay away from his girl. Noel cut in, telling everyone to stop arguing and asked for Lloyd's vote. Lloyd asked Noel if he was really serious, and Noel said yes, adding that his dream had always been to become the greatest adventurer and surpass his grandpa. He also said that if they weren't going to form the clan, he'd leave the team and take his share with him. Lloyd finally agreed with the plan and said they'd discuss the details in 2 days. Noel and Walter agreed, and they all went their separate ways. However, on the day of the meeting, Walter barged into Noel's room in a panic, telling him they'd been betrayed. Lloyd and Tanya had run off with all the group's funds,